Hey everybody, I am back with another how to draw video. This one is going to be a wolf eye in my own style, kind of realistic but still has that fantasy whimsical touch. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking that link. If you would be so kind as to like, comment, and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that bell button so you get the notifications of when I add a new video. Every Wednesday, I do a Free Art Wednesday video where you get a chance to win free art by me. I will provide the link in the description for that playlist if you'd like to see the past winners and what they got for art. And if you find yourself enjoying this tutorial, please let me know if it was helpful and if there is a type of tutorial you would like to see in the future. Having said that, let's get started. So to start things off, I'm just going to sketch out the basic shape of the eye that I am looking at. Make sure you are using a real photograph for reference. Don't look at someone else's artwork. You want to make sure you're learning from the real thing. Otherwise, you risk learning the mistakes that artist is doing, and that just kind of slows you down in your progress going forward. I was going to attempt to use real words for some of the anatomy of the eye, but if you've watched my previous videos, or if you know me from Wajas, you know I suck at pronouncing things, so I'm not even going to try. Google dog eye anatomy if you want the real words, otherwise you'll have to suffer my imaginative words that I come up with as I go on in this tutorial. In my drawing here, I've done the tear duct, and that's the kind of the part over on the left there, and the bottom eyelid. If you look closely at the eye, it doesn't just end at the fur. There are bits of skin there, aka the eyelids or whatever you want to call them, that surround the eye. The eye is a circular shape, and you won't see the entire eyeball in the eye. A good portion of that goes under the upper eyelid. But to keep the shape accurate, you want to draw a circle, then later erase the top that goes past the eyelid. This will help keep a good rounded shape. Once you have these basic shapes in, you can start shading them in. I'm using a textured brush pencil to do this. I'm going to start filling in the tear duct and the bottom eye, as well as darkening the area that is closest to the eyeball. If you've seen my previous videos, you know that I am a fan of the smudge tool, so it doesn't quite matter how the texture looks right now. I'm just going to establish the lighting this way. I'm going to have the eye looking to the left, so the pupil is going to favor the left side of the eye. Once I have figured that out, I go back and clean up some of my scribbles because I'm getting close to getting ready to start smudging and painting in the detail. It is important to note that the eye starts to darken as it rounds into the eye socket, so I've started to add some detail lines there. If you don't have shading there, it will stand out like a moon in a dark sky, which isn't really how a dog's eye looks. You want it softened and complementing everything around it versus standing out like a sore thumb. After I started that, I defined the upper eyelid some and filled in the bottom eyelid. Again, it doesn't really matter that there's a lot of texture there. I'm going to correct that shortly. I continue adding detail and a little bump at the top of the eye. That area is where the little whiskers come out of above the eye. If you didn't already know, dogs usually have a couple whiskers up there. I do find this part therapeutic though. I don't stress out about this part. I just like to make all the little lines, so don't overthink it too much, just scribble away. Now I'm going to add a circle for where the pupil is. Remember, I wanted the dog to look to the left, so the pupil is going to be more on the left side of the eye. Then I add some soft shading above the pupil and under the upper eyelid. The eyelid is above the eyeball, so that shading helps explain the different placement. Then I continue adding more scribbles and lines for detail. As you're doing this, remember the eye is round, so the lines should reflect the roundness of the eye. Start at the center and gently curl out to the edge of the eye. Shading along the edge of the eye might be rounded as well, instead of straight flat lines. Also go in and add circular lines around the pupil, blend it in some. The pupil isn't really just a circle on the eye. It does fade some or have different irregular shapes that break into the iris. Really differs from eye to eye. After I've softened the pupil's appearance, I go in and add a little bit more detail with the pencil brush. Just want to make sure I have the shading really defined well before I hop to the next stage, which is smudging, aka blending. I'm going to start at the bottom corner again, the tear duct area of the eye. With my blending brush, I'm going to start smudging around all the lines so they have a softer appearance. If you saw my other tutorials, you saw that I used a brush that left some brush strokes behind that I took advantage of. It kind of resembled fur. For the eye though, I don't want to see those brush strokes, so I actually would use a brush with a much softer edge. Now that the eyelids are softened, I move into the eyeball itself, trying to remember the direction of my detail lines. I repeat the same flow with the smudge brush. I do lose a bit of detail through this step, but I always go back over with the other colors anyway to add those details back in. So I try not to obsess over that lost detail. Sounds a bit counterproductive, I know, but this way works for me for some reason. Now I'm going to use a black paintbrush and go back through to really define the darker areas. The areas closest to the eyeball are going to be pretty dark, as well as the edges of the eyeball. Bits of the pupil will be dark as well as the area under the upper eyelid. Using the smudge brush, I then pull some of that black out of the pupil and curl it down through the eye. Because again, the pupil isn't just a flat circle that floats in the eye, it does blend out in some ways. I also smudge some of that black from the edges back into the eye center for some added detail and movement. Now using the eraser tool, not a paintbrush with white ink, I'm going to erase in some of the highlights. Starting with the edge of the eyeball, I like to have a little bit of reflection there. It probably isn't entirely realistic, but it's something I enjoy having in my artwork. I then add another layer, and with a black paintbrush, I add a bar of color over the top of the eyelid. I soften it and drop the opacity a little. Just kind of puts a nice shadow there without ruining any of the detail I just started cleaning up. Using a black brush, I go in and start adding in all those smaller details. I'm not even going to try to pronounce any words that go with these details of the eyes. But if you look at a really good high definition picture, or even your eye in the mirror, you'll notice all kinds of lines, spots, or textures of sorts through your iris. There's actually a lot of stuff going on in your eye that might not immediately be noticeable to the untrained eye. Then after I get those lines in, I go in, I smudge them up, soften them up, maybe add a couple more. I just really build on the detail. Now for the part that really breathes life into the eyes, the light reflection, eye spots, highlights, whatever you want to call those little white spots. The light source is primarily on the left, so I'm starting with a sharper white dot there, and I gradually blend it out. The eye is circular, so I draw a line that curls down the left side of the eye. The curling of that line will help explain the shape of the eye to the viewer. I'm going to do the same types of lines on the right side of the eye, then maybe add some additional little white spots and lines in the pupil itself. Sometimes even little heart spots can be kind of fun to do. I've also done bokeh lights and stars, though now that I think about the bokeh lights, I kind of regret not doing that in this one. Some eyes do have moisture in them, which explains the little dots on the bottom of the eyelid. There may be some highlights along the shape of that bottom eyelid as well, so using the eraser tool, I've erased those details in, then smudged them for a softer touch. While avoiding the moisture spots, I want those spots to be somewhat defined in shape. Now for the important step that a lot of beginner artists seem to miss. The eyelids are not just sharp, super defined areas on the face. They actually blend out and kind of turn into fur detailing. Fur curls down into the top of the eye, around the tear duct, and even curls with the bottom of the eyelid. Using the eraser tool, you can erase fur detail right into the eye. And trust me, always use the eraser tool for this technique. It's really important, and you're going to find out shortly why. You can also use a black paintbrush to add some fur detailing along the fur bits you erased in. This will help blend out the fur area, but because this is an eye tutorial, I'm not going to go too far into how to do the fur. That can be a separate tutorial. If you guys would like one, just leave a comment below letting me know that you're interested in that. Once you get a good amount of detail added for the fur, you can use the smudge tool to soften it out. After that, I will go back in and erase some final detailing before adding the color. This is the time to do it if you need to add more detail. Don't wait till the color. I added a quick layer under the drawing for some base fur color. Again, this is an eye tutorial, so I'm not going to spend too much time focusing on how to do the fur, but I don't want the eye floating on a white background. Once you have your base color down for the eye, scribble in some shaded color. I went a little more red for my shade. Do the same for the highlights. I went toward the cream side for those, so the eye has some cream, some gold, and some red. Then I smudged it around because I do love my smudge tool. And earlier I had explained to you that you want to use the eraser for your highlights. It is so the color will show when you start adding in the color. It wouldn't show if you had used white instead. Then here I add white, so all those highlights go back to being white. Now I add a layer, set it to multiply, and add some more detailing, smudge those out. Then I do the same for highlights on a layer set to screen, smudge those out as well. Essentially the same stuff we've been doing with the assistance of multiply and screen. After all of that, I flatten everything, I add a new layer, set it to color dodge, and scribble on some gold under the highlights. It really gives a warmer feeling to the eye that I really enjoy having for my portraits. The next part is a speed painting of some quick fur detail. I didn't want a floating eye for this tutorial. My final touch is a few eye spots above everything to make the eye extra shiny. And that, my friends, is how I do my realistic type eyes. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something from this tutorial. If you haven't already, please comment, like, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell button so you get notifications of when I add new videos. If there's a specific kind of tutorial you would like to see, please let me know and I will see what I can do. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.